let's
fair.
assume that they're both apples to apples. Now it's actually a sport. Like, it comes down to who has more talent, who's been training harder. And it's nice to see McLaren kind of taking a unbiased role. Like, hey, boys, play nice. Don't do anything stupid, but also go racing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to F1 True North, the Canadian Formula 1 podcast. I'm Walker. We're here with Drew, and we're going to talk, let's talk Austria. A little McLaren on McLaren violence.
It seems to be a running theme. We're having a lot of McLaren on McLaren love. Like, the Canadian Grand Prix was something very similar, and obviously the boys played a little nicer. But like, those first dozen laps between McLaren were pretty nice. You know, we got off to a pretty rocky start with Carlos Sainz. And, you know, the Kimi Max kind of debacle at the beginning. But, Austria was a good time. The weather was cracking. It was hot as hell there.
It was toasty.
Yeah.
It was like, it gets very hot there. You're like in the mountains. You're kind of trapping the heat in there. So it gets toasty. Lots of heat. Didn't help Mercedes. We can talk about that a little bit more because their car seems to do absolutely dog shit when the temperatures are too high. But yeah, to your point, like, McLaren I was surprised they kept it as clean as they did. I know Piastri kind of went for like a late move at one corner and was kind of like slapped on the hand a little bit, or so it seemed. But you know, that was like good racing. Lando held it together. He didn't choke, and it was. I mean, frankly, if it wasn't for those two, that would have been a kind of boring race, but they definitely made something to watch worthwhile.
I think a lot of the action happened in the first 20 laps. Like, realistically, like, I think, you know, everyone very quickly knew with the tire deck that this was going to be a two-strop strategy. There are a couple teams that ran really late with the mediums. Like, I think Lawson and Alonso were going super late with the mediums. But yeah, like, you know, you mentioned, I guess, you know, Austria from experience. Like, you've been to the Austrian Grand Prix, so like, when you're talking about the race,
I haven't been to the Grand Prix there, but go to Austria every summer. Go visit some family, and like, the heat is real.
The heat
for
is
sure.
Real. Is it Canada summer sticky hot, or is it like drier heat, like an Arizona type hot, or
it's like dry for the most part.
Dry heat, okay.
Dry and like toasty.
Because like where that race is kind of like tucked on a mountain. It looks like ish.
Yeah, it's kind of like in like a bit of a valley, I would say.
Okay.
But like, you're surrounded, right? It's kind of landlocked. You're surrounded by like hills and mountains. So like, when you radiate that in there, like it's just kind of like sitting, right?
Got you. So there's no relief from the heat. It gets hot. Because they were complaining about that all weekend, right? And like, the race day ended up being the hottest of the 3 days that they're in town. And you know, like you mentioned, that played a huge factor into Mercedes' game. Right. And how they were able to do so well in Canada and a couple of these other cooler temperature places. They, that car just hasn't figured it out in the heat. And, you know, I guess my question is not a question, but like, my statement is that the Mercedes powertrain, that's the issue, right? Because then you look at what happened to Albon and Sainz. I don't know if I would argue Sainz's issue off the get. It looked to me like he was having a brake lock issue. Like, the back two brakes look like they locked, and that's why he's like, it feels like I'm stuck on something. He finally got the car going, and when he slowed it down in the pits, that's when, you know, the air wasn't moving around the brakes anymore, and that thing just kind of lit up. It lit his ass on fire.
I mean, fair enough, but to counterpoint, I mean, McLaren also uses Mercedes power plant, and they were doing all right.
Yeah. So what's the deal then? I'm not asking you for the answer. I'm just saying, like, what, you know.
I was going to say, what am I supposed to come
Why
here
can't
with?
you solve Mercedes problems, Walker? What are you doing? Oh,
jeez. I don't know. Well, we're going to have to leave that in the hands of much
that wasn't
smarter
a question.
people.
That's an unfair question.
That is an unfair question.
Yeah, it's an unfair question.
But yeah, I mean, not a great weekend for them overall. I mean, George was okay. Kimi kind of, well, we all know what happened to Kimi. That might be his first, you know, maybe that's his first rookie mistake of his career so far.
I disagree. And I'm going to tell you why.
Please
Look what happened to him last year was it Imola or was it
Yeah,
Monza?
but he wasn't full time. I'm
He
talking
was
about
not full time, but that was his first rookie mistake, and that was like the rookiest of rookie mistakes because he was in like free practice, and he put it in the wall.
I would say this is rookier.
Rookie, okay.
So first of all, I wouldn't consider that in a practice a rookie mistake because he technically didn't have a ride. It wasn't his car. So I'm
which is worse.
That.
You want to crash someone else's car or at least crash your car? Is that too soon?
Not better. It's not better or worse. It's just I think it was his first rookie mistake. I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, fair about free practice and one that had some consequence. Right? Okay, so you throw the car in the wall in free practice. That's one thing. You can rebuild it, come back for quali. Okay, shit happens. This is completely different. And not only that, but you take out potentially one of the scariest drivers on the racetrack. And I love how he just sat in his car. He was just sitting there like he knows what he did, right? Helmet on, stays in the car, not getting out.
Mm-hmm.
Terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified. This like poor little like kid. And he was like Max, 4-time world champion that he just like took right out of the race.
Yep.
It was pretty fun.
He had a little sit down with himself. He sat down in the car and reflected. He had a couple of moments with himself and figured it out. But I also think too, Max was after the dust had settled, literally and figuratively. I think Max was pretty quick to forgive the guy because like he's been known to do a couple dive bombs that might have cooked a little bit and maybe have taken himself and other racers out. And I think he's done the same thing because he was very quick to respond and say, hey, listen, he screwed up. Everyone's done that before. Just came in a little hot and cooked it and took Max out. It could have been anyone in the grid. It happened to be Max at the time, but it's what it's going to be. And if Max forgives you, I really think you should be forgiven because he doesn't forgive lightly.
He does not, and I was going to say, I think he really has a bit of a soft spot for some of the rookies this year. Like obviously Bortoleto, right? Antonelli, he seems to have a good relationship with, and I've been, through his Redline, like his sim racing team and stuff like that. I think they do a lot of work in terms of like driver development and advancing drivers and training and things like that. So it's interesting to see this kind of like soft paternal side, if I may say so, of Max, where he's there. He's like he seems very like nurturing and understanding because guaranteed if that was a handful of other drivers on the Alonso, Hamilton, Russell, Norris, if that was a handful of other drivers on the grid, I don't think he would be as understanding.
No, I agree immensely. And I saw a couple of people who had posted online, I did the wrong thing and did a deep dive into the comment section about, what's going on with the races. And one of the snappy internet comments that I absolutely love. You can always count on the internet to come up with some clever shit. The internet as a whole is just pretty clever. Someone said it took Max 20 seconds in 3 corners to do what Yuki did in 70 laps. They got the same amount of points, and it was incredible. And you know what? It kind of put it in perspective that without Max, Red Bull isn't. They are not. And
they're a one-car team.
That is so dangerous, and you don't really notice it because Max is such a good driver. You don't notice it until stuff like this happens. That's the reality. And then it becomes it's a burn weekend. Like there's not even a chance of them scrambling for points. And when you're fighting in a championship against 2-car teams, which Ferrari is, Mercedes is for the most part, and McLaren most definitely is, you don't have a chance, right? Because then even teams like Williams, obviously this is a bad example for that weekend because Williams had an absolutely brutal weekend, but even teams like Williams, right? Look at Haas, look at Kick Sauber. Right? Like when you have 2 cars fighting, you get twice as many opportunities for points. But I thought it was a super sad weekend, but like we got some winners and losers from this weekend.
We did. Do you want to go through some of those for you?
Yeah, I think winner, let's, take a very obvious one and go with Lando. I think that's a huge W for him. I think it, especially if Oscar got a little bit worse than second place, then I think that might have been, you know, a little bit more help. But it definitely puts him back in the running for Drivers' Championship this year. I think that's the most exciting thing about this year's season, or this season's racing, is
The Drivers'
seeing what's
Championship.
going to. Yeah, that Drivers' Championship between the McLaren boys is going to be outstanding, because we really haven't had one of those in a while, right? Between like two racers on a
4
team.
years. Well, between the teammates, yeah. I guess that would go back. When was that? Mercedes last time with Nico and Lewis. And then you had 2021 with Lewis and Max, and then now.
But Lewis and Max were on the same team. I mean, like, when was the last time that you had like?
Well, they were on different teams, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, right. So I think it was it McLaren, or was it Hamilton?
Yeah,
Rosberg?
Mercedes. Yeah, it would have been Hamilton Rosberg for sure. So you're 9 years out, 10 years out.
Yeah, so I think that's very interesting.
So is that more interesting for you? Is it more entertaining to see teammates battle it out, or no?
That's a deep question. It's a deep question, and
I thought it was pretty simple.
Okay. It is interesting to me because you are comparing somebody with apples to apples, right? Like, it just comes down to like, who's the better driver. It's not like a Max versus Lewis thing, and it was like, is Red Bull going to come with better upgrades? Is, you know, Mercedes going to come with better upgrades? Who's the better with the tires? Because they're driving the same car. Yeah, and like, let's assume that they're both apples to apples. Now it's actually a sport. Like, it comes down to who has more talent, who's been training harder, who's, you know, I guess there's a luck element involved, right? There's all that kind of stuff. And it's nice to see McLaren kind of taking a unbiased role. Like, hey, boys, play nice. Don't do anything stupid, but also go racing. Because, like, I think McLaren's going to have a tough time, both short-term and long-term, picking a number one.
Okay, so how do you take their instruction to Piastri? Like, obviously, he's trying to pass. He comes into that one corner a little hot, locks up the brakes.
Sure.
Almost takes out Lando, and then the instruction comes across, that was too far.
Correct.
What do you think about that? Because I'm thinking, if you're racing and you want to encourage these guys to fight, then it's a very small margin between making that pass or taking the car out. I'm not sure if that was necessarily a turning point, but, you know, Piastri definitely seemed to lose some momentum after that point, right? They went in, they changed tires. He lost some time on the outlap. There's a few other elements that went into it. But you kind of take the wind out of the driver's sail and out of like that competitive nature when you're like, play a little nicer.
I do. I think that that's a reality. I also think too that when you have two guys in the same car, it gets harder to pass. Like, to do those things and like to have a superior car that's like better on the straights, better in the corners or whatever, it makes it easier to pass at certain points at certain tracks. But I think that lap is, or that track, Austria has some great passing opportunities, but I think with those two guys in the same car, their highs and lows are at the same points. So like it becomes very difficult to pass. And I also think too that personally, I believe that Lando Norris would have got that same instruction had he been in second place and also pulled that shit. Because what they learned from the previous race was that you can very quickly mess things up in a big way. And so I think that McLaren also has to look out for the betterment of the team and not worry about individual drivers. And when when they tell Oscar to kind of back up a little bit, like give him some space, we don't mind you guys racing, but like keep it clean, that they're not looking for an incident like they had at the last race. And also, I think Oscar is much more aware at the long game, because he would much rather take a second place than a DNF, right? Because that would allow Lando to catch up and maybe even pass him. I can't remember exactly what the points are. So I think that there's also a little bit of Oscar's maturity coming into play there too.
Yeah, right now Lando's 15 points back.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still close enough. Still very much in the race. Max has 155 points. Red Bull has 162 points. So that kind of highlights his contribution, or the lack of contribution, from anyone else that's driven that car.
Sure.
Frankly.
Sure. 100%.
Ferrari kind of, I feel like Ferrari's had a couple of quiet, almost nomadic races the last few weeks.
Yeah.
They're kind of there, but they're nowhere.
I heard Lewis talk about that specifically. Like, I don't remember one of the radio messages. I think it was a couple races back. I don't remember exactly. It might have been in Spain. I can't remember specifically. Yeah. And he was like, this race was boring. I didn't see anyone. Like, he was kind of in like La La Land in the middle. Like, all the top runners were allowed to pit and still come out ahead of him. So there was a gap of at least 20 and some odd seconds between him and everybody else. And I think for somebody like Lewis, that's got to be disheartening in a big way and like almost confusing, because that's just not how he drives. And I think it's interesting to see somebody with his pedigree be put in a situation like that and feel so lost. I can just imagine what the frustration was like there.
Yeah, I think it was a few back-to-back races. It was Spain, Canada, I believe. There was like a similar gap.
Yep.
And then this race, right? He wasn't really racing anyone. And frankly, in this race, neither really was Charles. Charles was just kind of like, I mean, this was helped by the fact that obviously Max got taken out. George was really nowhere. So he was kind of like the default third place, but he was just kind of like running laps without really much consequence. It's, to your point, for any of these drivers, right? It's got to be a weird place to be where you're just, it really doesn't seem to make a difference. There was one moment during this race where Lewis was really calling to his engineers to kind of keep him out, right? They were going to bring him in for that second pit stop. He said the tires were good. And, you know, they kind of overrode him and was like, okay, no, you got to come in. This is how we get the fastest time to completion. This is how we run the fastest race, right? Is coming in for the second stop. And the commentators that I was watching, which were the F1 TV commentators, they kind of made an interesting point where they said, is it about finishing the race in the fastest time or finishing in the best position? And those two aren't always the same strategy, right? Sure. And you think about it where, you know, if you kind of try and, you know, Charles did this. When did he do this? I think it was last season. Or we've seen a bunch of drivers do this. Charles, George, where they kind of like extended into a one-stop, right? Yep. They play the long game. They try and preserve their tires, and they just hang on enough because it's hard to pass at particular tracks, or they're just able to kind of like maintain enough pace. And because they try a different strategy, they end up on the podium or whatever it was. And I think that's what he was really, really pulling for, finishing in the best position versus finishing in the fastest amount of time. And I'm wondering if, you know, it's hard to kind of compare because there are so many factors involved, but I'm wondering if Ferrari has what's the word I'm looking for? How open they are to these type of strategy calls, right?
Their willingness to like try
their
something
willingness,
different.
their openness, yeah. I wonder if they're a little gun shy based on like some of like their previous experiences and shit. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. You get it.
Well,
you know what I mean.
The fact that, you know, the two McLaren boys were 20 seconds ahead of Charles this race and 30 seconds ahead of Lewis. Now, once you take in the top four, George was 60 seconds back. So that's 30 seconds away from Lewis. Right? Like, I just find that, you know, at least in this race, that spread became so large. Right. Like, and, you know, like you'd mentioned that the Ferraris are kind of floating in the middle there. Right. Because then like George was there. Liam was pretty close behind George. And like the reality, like that's a crazy drive from Liam Lawson. Like to get sixth place was wild business from him. Fernando Alonso got a decent amount of points there too in seventh. Yeah. And then you had a double points finish for Kick Sauber, which is crazy talk, right? Bortoletto did a fantastic job. I think he was probably the dark horse from the race. I think he just did fantastic. And even Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman, right? Like, you know, Ocon finished out the points there, but even Behrman, right? Like that's not bad. And then you had Isaac Hadjar, who, you know, over the last couple races had done so well, and obviously things fell apart here. But yeah, it was interesting to see the gap that McLaren has against a team like Ferrari. Like I thought that gap was a lot closer, and obviously something was amiss here for Ferrari this weekend. And like you'd mentioned, I think probably last weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, a miss, although if you listen to the drivers in the post-race interviews, they're saying that they're making progress and they brought some upgrades and it really helped and
Sure.
et cetera, but you're still over a race distance 30 seconds away.
Sure, but like that's the thing, like Charles and Lewis in Canada at the Montreal Grand Prix, they were much closer, right? Like Charles was in fifth place, so like you said, he finished much faster, but he wasn't in the position because he got fifth place, but he was only 3 seconds back. And Lewis had a 7-second gap between him. But like that, the top 8 guys were under 15 seconds apart, right, in Canada, where like the top 4 guys were already, right, the top 2 guys were already like, 30 seconds ahead of the Ferrari.
Wasn't there a safety car, though, near the end of Canada?
Maybe. Tighten it up.
Maybe.
Could have been.
Anyways.
I forget. That was weeks ago.
Anyways.
Jesus.
I know. I was supposed to remember that shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Austria done in the books.
Dustin.
We got Silverstone next week.
Yeah, buddy.
British Grand Prix.
Yeah, buddy.
Fantastic track.
It is a fantastic.
Lots of history, lots of heritage. I mean, given the number of British drivers on the grid right now, a home race for a whole bunch of guys.
Oh yeah.
Lewis pulled out a win last year somehow.
That was a spectacle. I don't know how that was abnormal. That was abnormal.
I can't even remember how it happened, but it was just like magic. A magical moment. It was good. He needed it. He needs it again, frankly.
Yeah, he does. He does. If he wins it here, something's up.
Yeah. You think so?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. With how far back that car is, something would have to be up. Yeah.
So what do you got? British Grand Prix, McLaren's dominating again?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I don't think that, yes, short answer, yes. I don't think that Max is going to get taken out this time. So I think Max will be a heavy competitor there. Historically speaking, Silverstone, England as a whole is not a generally hot place. So I think Mercedes might be up there. So that'll be fantastic for George. I'd like Kimi to have a good race, hopefully with some redemption from Austria. I would like to see the Kick Sauber boys keep it up. I have obviously, you know what, it's weird. I have this like Max Verstappen complex. I kind of have like a soft spot for all these rookies. And I just want to see Bortoletto do well. I want to see Colapinto do well. I sneaky kind of want to see Carlos Sainz pick it up a little bit. I think that him not out racing or out qualifying Albon, not to say that, Albon's not a great driver. I just think that Carlos Sainz is a better driver. And I just want to see him kind of come out of his shell a little bit, figure that Williams car out a little bit. Alpine, I could do without that team.
Really?
Yeah. They're just kind of not, they've been so lost and just not it at all. And it's too bad. It really is too bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've been showing the bit. I mean, just the way they've been operating that team has been a bit of a disaster over the few years. Apparently, so Colapinto was on a 5-race program, contract, whatever it is.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you heard, but apparently it got extended beyond Silverstone.
Okay.
On a race-by-race basis.
On a race-by-race basis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he is. He'll have a seat. He'll have a race in Silverstone, and then I think we'll see what happens. But his time in Alpine has definitely taken some of the shine off of his apple.
Did you know that Sky Sports released something 4 hours ago that Valtteri Bottas might be heading to Alpine?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't.
This is crazy. And like I just looked it up. I saw something on like the race. And then now I see 4 hours ago that Sky Sports just posted if Bottas is going to Alpine mid-season 2025.
I mean, I guess it would depend on what his prospects are at somewhere like Cadillac.
Correct.
But isn't it weird to think Cadillac is going to be on the grid next year?
I am so pumped for the merch. I keep talking about it. I'm not excited for them as a team because I just know how long it takes teams to get going. Look at Haas, you know what I mean? Like just to kind of get things rolling. So, they're going to be a whatever team on the grid, I think, for the first little bit, but I'm very much pumped for the merch. But yes, the reality for something like that is just the way that he hinted on it. the way that Bottas hinted the seat at Cadillac gives me so much hope for something exciting and something new to watch. Like, to have 22 cars on the grid is going to be cool. I'm here for that.
Okay, so you're Valtteri. You have this opportunity at Alpine, or you have an opportunity at Cadillac. Yeah, you have you can either go to a dumpster fire or like a brand new team that's going to have lots of growing pains. What do you choose?
I'd take a dumpster fire 6 race contract. Like, I would help Alpine finish the season just to get back into an F1 car. Yeah. I wouldn't take like a 1 year or anything like that. Like, I wouldn't be. No. Just even the option that Cadillac might be there, I wouldn't take anything longer than I'll finish this season for one of your drivers kind of contract.
Interesting. Do you think that, I'm wondering, pros and cons, right? Like, are the optics of that potentially worse than not having a ride at all season?
Sure. Because they might
like
get in there.
You get an Alpine and then you start like eating a bag of dicks, and all of a sudden Cadillac's like, well, why do we want this guy? Or just like the perception, right? I mean,
for sure, 100%.
Because it feels like no one has really thrived at Alpine.
No, Alpine hasn't thrived at Alpine.
And I don't think anyone looks good in that car. Like, Pierre's been there for a number of years and he had like the odd success, but like Colapinto doesn't look great.
No, he looked better in the Williams.
Yeah, didn't look great. Who's before doing? Ocon. Again, the odd success here and there, but the last couple of years, it is not a team I would want to be associated with.
No, I agree. And I don't. They would have to offer you something pretty spicy for that to happen. I think Bottas being a reserve driver at Mercedes is probably better than being in a race car at Alpine.
100%. From my seat, I would agree, but we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. That's exciting. When did they say they were going to make an announcement?
I have no idea, but like actual Formula One 10 hours ago put out driver market, why Alpine have inquired about Bottas's availability.
Because they suck.
Yeah, because they're grasping at straws. That's why. Why would Alpine be keen in exploring Bottas as an option? It's twofold. Briatore finds the team's current level of performance concerning. While Alpine locked down the Constructors' Champion, or is locked at the bottom of the Constructors' Championship, he wants short-term progress soon. Having two strong drivers delivering consistently can have a significant impact, as Williams are seeing with their experienced lineup of Albon and Carlos Sainz. All right, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
I understand why Alpine would want Bottas.
Sure.
I struggle to see what Bottas would get out of Alpine.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Well, we'll find out. See where Valtteri lands in Silverstone. Do you want to do a quick prediction? Top three?
Top three. Let's go with, I think Piastri is going to pull something off here. I think he got a little chuffed in Austria coming in second place. And I think, mommy and daddy kind of slapping his hand while he was going for that cake is going to cheese him out a little bit. And I think he's going to put in a banger. I definitely think that we're going to see, I'd love to see George on the podium. I don't know if this is a prediction or if it's just a hope, but yeah, I would like to see George on the podium. It's his home race.
It's a lot of people's home race.
I know, but something about George, he's extra British. He just looks British.
He is extra British.
He's extra British. Yeah. Like
he is extra British. Yeah.
Yeah. So, then to round that podium out, let's put in Lewis because of the same reasons. Although he doesn't look extra British, I think that he
is a knight.
He is knighted. He couldn't be more British, but if I got to draw a British person, he's not the guy I would draw. George would be the guy I would draw. So
based purely on stereotypes, George gets second.
Hello.
Okay, I'm gonna do. All right, let's do Lando, Lewis, Max.
I fucking knew you were gonna say Max.
I was thinking, actually, I was gonna throw out Ollie Behrman just because he's also British.
Oh, we're just going a full Brit lineup here.
Full Brit lineup, but
Yeah,
now what,
well,
Max?
watch both of us not get that podium entirely, and it's going to be incredible. So,
we're not even gonna be close.
not even almost. No, not even almost.
No, not even almost.
Before we go anywhere, do anything, we need to discuss the absolutely awesome and new Formula One movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so this is all you, buddy.
I don't want to destroy it for anybody, but I do need to discuss. No spoilers. I'm not going to give anything away. Nothing that's not already out in the trailers. The movie's good. Like, you can't say anything. Like, when you got Jerry Bruckheimer, whoever did the Top Gun thing, and like, you know, he went out and did his thing, and you know, they put in so much love and effort, you can tell, because like they came up with, like, they went to Sony and said like, hey Sony, we need some like cool new cameras. Sony came to them like super quick and said, hey, we're going to give you 25 of these like 4K whatever cameras that they put on. And like, when that much care and effort goes into putting a movie together, it's something that's like, it's just well done, you know. Like, is the storyline a little bit predictable? Sure. Like, old guy comes back to F1, sitting with the new guy. There's obviously like a battle. Do they come to see eye to eye and everything's happily ever after? Sure. But I liked it. Like, if you take out, if I wasn't a big F1 fan and I couldn't point out all the stuff that wasn't realistic, anyone else who's not a huge F1 fan, who just kind of likes racing, casual watchers, or somebody who's not interested in Formula One, would they be interested in this movie? 100%. If you're looking at it from like a documentary style, or like, you know, you want to start criticizing things, like for instance, right away, the guy gets into a Formula One car. They start it with that little gun, you know, at the back where they like, and I'm like, that's not how Formula One cars start anymore. We're not doing that anymore. That hasn't happened in a long time. So like, immediately I'm like, well, if this is fake, that means the whole movie's fake. So you just have to like suspend your disbelief and just like go with it. Like, when they show up on race days, like, there's no qualifying like in the whole movie. Like, they don't talk about free practice. They don't talk about qualifying, none of that. Like, every time they're in a car, they're showing up on the grid for a race. And so like, even that part of it, you're like, well, how did they end up in 17th place? Like, what happened yesterday that like landed them here? You know what I mean? So like, all that kind of,
they did not do a good job.
This is what I'm getting at. I'm like, okay. So, but in terms of them being interwoven and intertwined with the realities, like, you know, you had Christian Horner and Zach Brown being interviewed with the fake, you know, principal from Apex Motors or whatever. You know what I mean? So like, that was so real, because like Zach Brown and Christian Horner were like both being interviewed by like an F1 guy. So they did really well with that. And like, Fernando Alonso kind of taps Brad Pitt on the shoulder and was like, oh, good job today, buddy, or whatever. And so like, you get to see like what we normally watch on race weekends. You kind of see that happen with this like fictitious team. And I just thought they did a really good job kind of like weaving a fake team into the realities of Formula One. As best they could. Like, if I were to rate it, I'd probably give it a 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, having not seen it, I think yet, I think one of the things that I am looking forward to is to your point, how they were able to kind of intertwine it into real events. Because as we know, when they were filming the movie, they would film it at real Grand Prix, real fans, you know, they would kind of like put, what's they called? AGX?
Apex.
What's their car? Apex.
Apex Motors, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. They would put their cars on the grid with all the other teams, right? Like, it was really well integrated, I think, into a real F1 weekend. I'm excited to see how that translates. I've read a couple of reviews about it, and I think, you know, the synopsis generally from like, not from F1 fans, but from like, you know, movie critics and things like that, is that this is just like an old school Hollywood summer blockbuster, and you just got to enjoy it for what it is. And it's a little predictable and it's a little formulaic, but you got a big movie star, you got a big budget, big production, and just enjoy it for what it is. Anyone going to see this movie and expecting it to be, you know, a real to life Formula One, you know, documentary weekend, I think they're going in with the wrong expectations.
Sure. You'll be wildly disappointed.
Yeah. But that's okay, because because there are lots of other ways to kind of become immersed in a Formula One weekend in a more realistic way, and this just isn't it. But I'm excited to see it, excited to check it out. Did you go like the whole full IMAX experience?
Hell yeah.
Was it overwhelming?
No, it was fantastic. Like the
Okay.
sounds and like the way it was done. It was filmed for IMAX. They filmed it like specifically, I wanted the full experience. Also, by the way, I went on the day it was released at 7:00. All the Sonny Hayes popcorn helmets at Cineplex were sold out already. I was so mad. My wife was like, dude, chill. It's not this guy behind the counter's fault. I'm like, this is opening day at 7:00. Like, it's been like, there's still a movie after us. How is this sold out already? I guess people just came in and bought them all up.
I guess so.
Anyways, I was a little pleased at that.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. I'm going to go maybe try and see it this week, and then we'll report back next week, as well as a little recap from the British Grand Prix. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Any last words?
But yes, before we sign off, I just want to say last race, we were in Austria. Formula One True North went out and met with Dave from F1 and TO. We went to Trinity Commons, where they do show the live race every Sunday, where there is a race weekend. And I had a lot of fun. It was a good vibe. I think there was about 75 people out. Trinity Commons is right down in Kensington Market. But when you get there early at 8:00 in the morning, even on a long weekend like this, parking was available, which is a huge worry for me when I'm driving downtown. I don't have to worry about where my car is going to be, especially in Kensington Market. It was great. The food was awesome. The vibe was good. They got a bunch of projector screens. Like, everyone's there laughing, joking, and like, you don't really realize how much a vibe it could be when you have like people like cheering for passes and stuff. Like when you're at home by yourself or with the wife or whatever watching it, you're like, oh, but when you got like a table of people like slamming on, like, oh, it was a vibe. It was a lot of fun, man. And shout out to Dave who puts that on week in and week out for Formula One, and especially, to bring some business to Trinity Commons. I think it's a great mashup. And if you guys haven't yet, definitely do yourselves a favor and make it out, because they show every race at Trinity Commons except for the Chinese Grand Prix, because that happens to be at 3 a.m. in Toronto, in which the bar is closed. So, yeah, definitely do it. It was a lot of fun, and we will be back with Dave at Formula One in TO.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Walker. That's Drew. This has been F1 True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. We'll be back next week talking about the British Grand Prix and a whole bunch of other stuff. F1.
Hell yeah.
Talk to you soon.